Hi, I'm Danielle, your friendly neighborhood fantasy author, and today I want to talk about books. Specifically, I want to talk about the books that I've read so far this year. Being that it's now July, I thought it would be a good opportunity to kind of sit back and reflect on the books that I've read so far this year, think back on what I liked and what I disliked. I was really into book journaling a few years ago, and the hobby's kind of gotten away from me now, but I did really enjoy that, kind of chronicling what I liked and didn't like about each book that I read. I'd like to get back into it. I don't know that I will. So I thought that this would kind of be a good opportunity to essentially do the same thing. And also maybe potentially help somebody out there find a new good book to read. I'm also going to be painting my nails during this video. This is not a video of me teaching you how to paint your nails. This is just a video of me talking about books, and I'm going to be painting my nails while I'm doing that. It's also going to be a testament to my attention span and how well I'm able to focus doing two things at once. I'm fully expecting to have to edit the heck out of this video, but oh well. Anyway, I've tried to record this intro like 15 times at this point, and I'm kind of tired of doing that. So without any further ado, we're just going to get right into it. Okay, so first up on our list, we have one of my absolute favorite books of all time. I am not quite sure how old I was when I read this book for the first time. Elementary school for sure. And it is a children's book, but I am also a huge proponent of reading children's books as an adult. I think it takes a special kind of adult to write a book that can not only hold a child's attention, like that in and of itself is a testament, but also hold an adult's attention as well. I think that that's a special type of writer. I don't know that I could do it. I have some kind of small desire to write children's books one day, but not as much as I have a desire to write books for adults. Anyway, the first book that I read this year is called The Last of the Really Great Whangdoodles by Julie Andrews. Yes, our Mother Mary Poppins, Maria von Trapp, Queen of Genovia extraordinaire. Honestly, what a woman. She also wrote a book. I don't know if she's written any other books. This is just the one book that I have by her. But I have had this particular book. Okay, we had a little piece of hair in there, so we had to fix that. So anyway, I don't know if Julie Andrews has written any other books, but she honestly doesn't need to because this one is an absolute banger. I won't say that I reread it every year. I try to reread it every few years. I mean, honestly, it literally takes me an afternoon to read it because it is a children's book after all. But The Last of the Really Great Whangdoodles is a story about three children coming to terms with growing up, but also learning how valuable and important the imagination is and what having a powerful imagination can do for you, slash where having a powerful imagination can take you. So what it can do for you, slash where it can take you. It also reminds me that the people who achieve great things have powerful imaginations. The people who achieve great things are really big dreamers. People who don't dream big don't achieve great things. And in order to dream big, so in order to achieve great things, you have to have a powerful imagination. I'm a huge, huge proponent of having a powerful imagination, and obviously, like, the work speaks for itself. Obviously Julie Andrews is as well, and honestly, like, look at her career, look at what she accomplished. Like, she has to have a powerful imagination. And then she turned around and wrote a story about how important it is to have a powerful imagination and what it can do for you / where it can take you. So if you have not read the last of the really great Whangdoodles, I would highly recommend it. Like I said, it is a children's book, so if you're coming at it as an adult, you can probably get it knocked out in a day, depending on what your comfortability with reading is. And that's also why I wanted to start with that one, because I feel like a lot of people are coming to reading nowadays. Reading's very popular. It's very on trend right now, which feels kind of bizarre to say as a lifelong reader. But I'm happy to see that it's trending and that it's popular right now, because so many more people are coming to reading that wouldn't have ever picked up a book before. So whatever your reading level is, it's okay for you to read children's books. In case nobody else told you that, like, it's okay for you to read children's books. I love reading children's books. Like I said, you can get them knocked out in an afternoon or a day, and it's just a quick little escape. This one specifically is a quick little escape into the landscape of imagination. I would also recommend it if you're doing any work healing your inner child, and if you feel like you need a spark of creativity, or maybe you just need something to remind you to pay attention again. This is a quick little story that can do that for you, I believe. Okay, moving on. Next up, we have Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. This year was actually the first year that I ever read Treasure Island, which, when I think back on my life and who I used to be as a person, specifically in my preteen years, when I had a certain hyperfixation, it's very surprising to me that I haven't read Treasure Island before. As much as I love pirates and pirate lore and pirate history, I haven't read like the book about pirates. I also didn't see Treasure Planet, which is based off of Treasure Island, until, I don't know, a few years ago. I didn't see it as a kid. Somehow that one escaped me. And now it's one of my absolute favorite movies. So again, it's still surprising to me that it took me so long to read Treasure Island. But, and this is why I think books are magic, books come to you when you need them most sometimes. Like, books just find you. And the specific version of Treasure Island that I have, like, I've never owned it before. I was out at the thrift store one day, a new thrift store on top of that. I was out at the thrift store and was just casually walking around, and I was looking at the book section and I saw Treasure Island. And I guess why it was like relevant to me right now is because in my book that I wrote, it has pirates in it. And so I've like kind of been paying attention to pirate stuff again. And so I was like, maybe I should get Treasure Island. And it was only $1. So I was like, okay, I'll get Treasure Island. I don't even know, 2 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks later, honestly, the trip was like so spontaneous, but a very short amount of time later, I was on a plane traveling to London to go see an old wooden boat and an exhibit about pirates. And as I was packing my bag, I was like, I guess I should take Treasure Island with me. And I was like, this is so fortuitous that I happen to have Treasure Island. I'm not a person who believes in coincidences. I 100% believe that this book coming to me was magical. And so I was like, well, I guess this is really fortuitous that I have Treasure Island. I'll take this with me. So I started reading it on the plane. And then I kind of continued to read it throughout the week. And then lo and behold, I get to the National Maritime Museum for the exhibit about pirates that I specifically planned this trip around. I walk into the exhibit and like I had finished the book by this point. And I walk into the exhibit and like the first thing that the exhibit talks about is Treasure Island, because that's how much of an impact the book had on developing like pirate culture. And so I walk in and I see this like a quarter of this exhibit dedicated to Treasure Island, and I was like, man, I am so thankful that I decided to read Treasure Island. And I was like, that was not conscious. That was all subconscious, you know, something moving through me convincing me to read this book right now because it's never been on my radar. I mean, it has because it's a classic book and it's about pirates, but it's never been relevant enough to me to read it until now. So that was just big magic when I got to the pirate exhibit, and a quarter of the exhibit was, I shouldn't say a quarter, about an eighth. An eighth. I like that, pieces of eight. An eighth of the exhibit was dedicated to Treasure Island because, like I said, that's how much of an impact it had on pirate culture. So that was really fun. What I actually thought about Treasure Island itself, as I read it, my first and foremost thought was, oh my God, I've gotten dumber since high school. That is a really scary feeling. I struggled reading it, and then it like extra bothered me because I was like, this was a children's book back in the day. This was a children's book. Why am I struggling to read this? I struggle with literature from that time period for whatever reason. I don't know. I can read Shakespeare and understand Shakespeare, but I've never been able to finish one of Dickens' works. I would really like to, but I sit down to do it and it's just like word jumble to me. I don't know. It's just too many words. It's too wordy. So I struggled with Treasure Island. And it bothered me how much I struggled with it. And but then I was like, well, we've always struggled with literature from this time period. So maybe we would have struggled with it back in high school. Maybe we're not getting dumber. I'm very cognizant and concerned about that, if I'm getting dumber or not. The story itself, I enjoyed it. I don't know that I'll ever read it again, but I enjoyed it. If you're into pirates, or if you would just like to knock more classics off your list, I would recommend it. It wasn't a boring story. It didn't suck. I feel like some classics are boring stories, and that's why nobody wants to read them, because they're boring. But Treasure Island was not that way. It will keep you on your toes, and I will say that even if it takes you some time to get through, just keep pushing through because it's worth it. It's a good story. It's a classic for a reason. Okay, so next on my list is The Squire's Tales by Gerald Morris. I love this book. It is book one in the series, The Squire's Tales, which is a collection of stories about King Arthur. I won't say that it's a children's book per se. It's middle grade, young adult. I'm not quite sure where it would fall / what classification it would fall into. Definitely for a younger audience, but it is to this day my favorite King Arthur adaptation. I am a huge fan of King Arthur stories, and The Squire's Tales is still, even as an adult with as many other King Arthur adaptations as I've read, The Squire's Tale is still my favorite King Arthur adaptation. And this is another book that I come back to every once in a while. I first started the series in high school. I believe I started it in ninth grade. But then my school library only had up to so many books. So I kind of put it on the back shelf, and it like lived in the back of my head rent free. And then in 2018, that was a fun year of reading for me. I just decided to like reread all of my favorite books from childhood that like lived in my head rent free. And I highly recommend that. Again, if anybody's doing inner child healing, I would highly recommend that. That's a great exercise. Like, go back to books that you really enjoyed from childhood. It's probably going to be really healing for your inner child for you to reread them again. And so I remember this series and I was like, I never got to finish that series. I want to finish that series. So I reread the first few books and then I finished the series. And even though it's a series for a younger audience, like I said this one about the last of the really great Whangdoodles, I think it takes a special author to be able to hold the attention of not only children but adults as well. And the last book in that series, I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but the last book in the series wrecked me. I mean, it just absolutely wrecked me. I made my first Tumblr aesthetic because of it. It was a beautiful book. It was a beautiful story. And yeah, I reread it. I don't reread the whole series. The Squire's Tale, the first one, is honestly probably still my very favorite one in in the whole series. Sir Gawain is my favorite knight of the Round Table, and it's a story about Sir Gawain's squire and the adventures that they get into. But then it's only like Sir Gawain and his squire Terence are main characters, and they do remain relevant throughout the rest of the books, but only the first few books are about them, and then it kind of shifts, and each book is a story about a different knight of the Round Table. But Sir Gawain is my favorite knight of the Round Table because of this series, and even through all the other King Arthur lore that I've read, Sir Gawain still remains my favorite knight of the Round Table because of this series. Very much Team Sir Gawain. Okay, so next up on my list is also relevant because of my trip to London. Next up on my list of books that I've read so far this year is Peter Pan. Now, this is not the first time that I read Peter Pan. Actually, I think the first time I read Peter Pan was back in 2018 when I was rereading all the books that I had read from childhood. I decided that year, it was kind of like Treasure Island this year. I was like, okay, like it's important, it's imperative that I read this book. I had never read it before. And I love the story of Peter Pan, some of my favorite movies. And I was like, it's imperative that I actually read this book now. So that was back in 2018, and I haven't read it since. It is a sad story. It always makes me cry, but being that it is one of my favorite stories, when I went to London this year, obviously, I was going to go to the Peter Pan statue. So I did. And if you've never read Peter Pan before, I am going to recommend it. It is a classic tale for a reason. It is a beautiful story. It is a sad story, but it is a beautiful tale. Again, if you're doing work on healing your inner child, I recommend it. It's going to teach you to stop and smell the roses and reflect on what it means to be a grown-up. It's going to teach you to reflect on the loss of that childhood innocence. And I think it's going to ask you when the last time you played was. When we're children, the world is our oyster and anything is possible. And then we grow up and slowly we forget how to have fun. We forget how to play. We lose that innocence. And if you are somebody who could potentially relate to that at this point in time in your life, I think that reading Peter Pan is a good way for you to start down that healing journey. Because you do need to have a certain element of play and innocence and wonder, and we can all learn a lesson about how to have a better experience as a grown-up from Peter Pan, in my opinion. Okay, so next on my list is going to be The Road to Roswell by Connie Willis. Now, this is the first book that I have ever read by Miss Willis, but I am already an immediate fan. This is also the first science fiction romantic comedy that I have ever read in my entire life. I do not read a lot of science fiction. I watch a fair amount of science fiction, but I don't read a lot of science fiction. If I had to name a few science fiction books that I have actually read, I think I could potentially come up with 2 off the top of my head. So I don't read a lot of science fiction. I'm not necessarily sure if she would classify this book as science fiction, or maybe she would just call it speculative fiction. I'm recently learning, still discovering what that genre means. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not really sure what speculative fiction means, to be quite honest with you. But just on the odd chance that Miss Willis would not classify her book as a science fiction romantic comedy, I'm going to call it speculative fiction. But what I really think it is a science fiction rom-com, which was something that I did not know was missing from my life until I discovered it. Again, this was one of those books that just kind of comes to you. I had never heard of this book before. I was just casually perusing the aisles of my library one afternoon and thought the title sounded interesting. So I pulled it out, read the flap, and was like, yeah, we'll give this a try. Why not? That's why books are magic, because they come to you in the most unsuspecting ways. I was not on the lookout for this book in any way, shape, or form, and this book was exactly what I needed at the specific time. And then it was also interesting because I don't usually read the author's acknowledgments, but I've started, like, since I wrote my own book, I've started reading the author's acknowledgments, and Miss Willis kept hers very short, and I don't remember the majority of what she said, because all I remember was she thanked the workers of her local Starbucks for supplying her with iced chai lattes. And I was like, oh my God, we're kindred spirits. She wrote a book about aliens and she drinks iced chai lattes. Like, we are kindred spirits. So that was just an extra special bit of magic for me. But it's a story about a girl who goes to Roswell, New Mexico to be a bridesmaid in her friend's wedding. And she gets kidnapped by an alien. I don't even know how to describe it. Like, it gives the energy of a heist a little bit, but I don't know if that's the right way to describe it or not. But it's just a fun, happy, good time. It's going to make you laugh, and honestly, it made me cry. And yeah, science fiction rom-coms. I didn't know that I needed those in my life until I read that book. And then I was like, I need more of these. So if you have any science fiction rom-com recommendations, please feel free to drop them down below and share them with me, because yeah, I need more of that in my life. 5 stars. So the next book on my list is Dreams and Shadows by C. Robert Cargill. Again, I'm not sure how to classify it. I'm not sure if it would be fantasy or speculative, like contemporary fantasy, if that's a thing, or speculative fiction. Can I just lump everything that I don't know how to classify it into speculative fiction? That's probably not right. Don't make that a thing. I'm really not sure how to classify this book, but one of the things that caught my attention when I was reading the synopsis was that it's a story that has a djinn as a main character. And personally, I do not come across a lot of tales, a lot of stories, a lot of books where a djinn is a main character and or in the story at all. I don't have very many. I can think of one other book that I've come across that has a djinn in it, and I didn't finish that book. I can't even think of the name of it off the top of my head. But I personally can't think of any other story besides like 1001 Arabian Nights that has a djinn as a main character. So again, if you know of a recommendation of a story that has a djinn as a main character, feel free to link it down below. I'm very interested in reading stories. Oh, the movie. Oh, it was really good. Okay, I'm going to Google it and I'm going to put a picture here. But the movie, it was a really good movie, and that had a djinn as a main character. I'm not sure if that's based off of a book or not. I'm going to do research and find out if it is or not. And then, so the storyline follows this little boy who meets this djinn, and the djinn grants him wishes, and one of the boy's wishes is to become a wizard. And he becomes a wizard to save the life of his friend. And it's interesting because you have a djinn as a main character, you have these fairies in the Southwest. I've never read that before either. That was an interesting take. And then you also have angels. Like at the very end, he also introduces angels. Like, sure, why not? Let's just throw those in there too. And they all met at a bar to share a drink with each other and talk about how and what it was like to be immortal. And I appreciated that. And it was a darker story, but it was still a good story. And I really appreciated how the author talked about magic as energy manipulation. If I try to explain it any more than that, I think I'm going to butcher it. So I'm not going to try to explain it any more than that. But if there was a sequel, I think I would read it, because that was a very interesting story. And I want to see what happens next in Colby's story. And then, so the last book to round out the first half of my literary journey for 2025 is Fools and Mortals by Bernard Cornwell. This book 5 stars. This book is the first book that I've ever read by Bernard Cornwell, which is funny because I am a huge fan of Netflix's The Last Kingdom, which is a TV show based off of a book series called The Saxon Tales by Bernard Cornwell. I have the first few books in the series and I would really like to get around to reading them one day, but I just haven't gotten to them yet. So it was kind of funny that I found Fools and Mortals because, again, I was perusing the aisles of the local library and stumbled across it. Was not on my radar in the slightest, but funnily enough, this book also can relate back to my trip to London. So my trip to London this year was a really big deal for me. It was somewhat of a bucket list trip. I've always wanted to go. And while I did plan it around going to the pirate exhibit at the National Maritime Museum, and also, like I said, I went to go see a big boat. I went to see the Cutty Sark. While I did plan the majority of the trip around that, also going to the Globe was a huge deal to me, and that was like that day's activity. It was a very short tour, so that was honestly kind of disappointing, but nonetheless, I still got to tour the Globe. And then afterwards, that afternoon, I went to the Sam Wanamaker Playhouse and I saw a play, and that was really fun because I don't think that I've ever been to a candlelit performance before, not that I can recall off the top of my head anyway. And also, I saw the production of Cymbeline, which was, again, really cool to me because I had never even heard of that play. Like, I didn't know that play of Shakespeare's, so that was really fun to be able to learn a new play. Seating was uncomfortable. But I did get to sit in the bottom row, so like I was like right up face to face with the actors, and coming from a person who very much misses performing, who grew up acting, it just made the performance that much more alive for me. So I did enjoy sitting down in the bottom row, even though the seating was not fun. That was not a good time. It was bench seating. But anyway, I still very much enjoyed that experience. And then like a month later, I come home and I'm in the library one afternoon, and I've already read 2 really good books, right? Since I've come home. Well, I guess 4 really good books since I've come home, if you're including the other 2, but 2 good books that I had not heard of before, that I had not read before. And then I come across Fools and Mortals by Bernard Cornwell, and I opened it, and it's a book about Shakespeare. Specifically, it's a book about Shakespeare's brother, and I still have not researched this for myself to know if Shakespeare actually had a brother named Richard or not, or if Bernard Cornwell just completely made him up, which is fine if he did. He did an amazing job of like writing this story of Shakespeare's potentially fictional brother. I really enjoyed the story, and I don't read a lot of stories with male protagonists very often, which I think is also what I enjoyed about Dreams and Shadows, was reading stories with a male protagonist. It kind of changes things up for me a little bit, like resets my reading algorithm. It's fun to pretend to be a different person for a while. So in this instance, I was Shakespeare's pesky younger brother who could not get his shit together. I was living like a fucking bum in London in the winter of the 1500s. Like, how freaking miserable of an existence. But he also was a player at the Playhouse with his brother at the Globe. There are moments in your life, I believe, where you think to yourself, is this what it feels like to be God's chosen one? And if you've never had even the slightest inkling of that kind of moment for yourself, I would recommend that you try resetting your algorithm in some way, because you deserve to have that feeling. Without getting into religion or spirituality, suffice to say that I do believe in some kind of higher power, and I do think that we all have a purpose. And I think that the grand creator spends time and intent bringing each of us into existence. And I do believe in little synchronicities, and it was very special for me to take a bucket list trip this year to a city that I've never visited before. I have actually, I've had my feet on the ground in London before, but that was literally to get off the airplane, to go to the train station, to take a train to Scotland. So I didn't visit London. But it was very special to me to visit the city that I've always dreamed about visiting, to visit an iconic landmark that I've always dreamed about visiting, to see a performance by an author that I very much respect and highly look up to, and then to come home and find a book by another author that I very much respect and read this story about Shakespeare writing my favorite play of his. The book is about Shakespeare writing A Midsummer's Night Dream, and it's like the antics that his brother gets up to while he's writing A Midsummer's Night Dream, because the story's about his brother. But when I finally realized what the play was that Shakespeare was writing in the story, I got that warm, tingly feeling inside, and I just felt like really giddy and happy. And I thought to myself, is this what it feels like to be God's favorite? Like, I was like ecstatic that I had just come home from London. I had just gotten to see a play, you know, not at the Globe, but close enough. And then I come home and find a book about Shakespeare, and of all the plays that Shakespeare could have been writing in the story, Bernard Cornwell chose to make this one a happy story about when Shakespeare was writing a happy love story. I mean, he could have written a really sad story about the writing of Titus Andronicus, you know? But he chose to write a happier story. And the amount of times that I laughed out loud with this story, like, I loved. And this one particular line has been living in my head rent-free since I finished it. I literally have not taken it back to the library yet because I'm not ready to part company with it yet. Sometimes I just have to hold on to the book for a little bit longer. I'm finally getting around to making this video, so now I have to part with it. I have to return it to the library because they've already renewed it for me twice. But this line that has been living in my head rent-free since I read it. No murder, my masters, my brother said. No murder. Now set to. We set to. Like, oh, that just gives me chills. It just gives me chills. And another one that I really, really like. His lordship was right. What we do is nonsense. We do not work, we play. We are players. We have a playhouse. Almost everyone works, brother, except us. We play. As an actor myself, as somebody who is in love with theatric arts and the performance arts in general, I very much just appreciated this story. I think that if you are an actor or any kind of performer, a dancer or a musician even, that you could appreciate this story, because there is just something about being on stage that makes you feel like a god. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. It's why celebrities have such, you know, huge egos. I mean, it really is. There's something about being on stage and performing for people that makes you feel like you can take on the entire world. I don't know if Bernard Cornwell is any type of performer himself, but I think he did a very, very good job of capturing what it's like to be an actor, but to be a performer. The character Richard expressing what it's like to be an actor just really did a good job of articulating that in a beautiful way, in my humble opinion. So that's it. That's all the books that I've read this year. If you're at all interested, the nail polish color that I used today is by OPI. It's called Welcome to Your Whirl. It's kind of relevant because I don't necessarily pick a color and use it exclusively for a season. Like, I change my nail polish color all the time. But for whatever reason this year, I have been wearing this color almost religiously. It's just very much giving fairy princess / friendly neighborhood fantasy author vibe. And yeah, I'm really loving it. I'm loving the glitter. I think that it turned out pretty good. I'm not going to do a close-up of my nails because I'm honestly not the best at doing my nails. I just enjoy having painted nails, so I continue to do them. But, you know, with time and practice, you eventually get better. So I hope that you've gotten something out of this video today. If anything, I just want to say thanks for spending your time here with me. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!